Uh, this is the Farmversity Rising's first gathering where we are going to talk about the curriculum and the various education initiatives. With that, I have honored to have three stalwarts from the space. Bharat Mansata. I've got Padma and Narsanna from Aranya Agriculture Alternatives in Zahirabad. And I have got Rajinder Chaudhary ji from Kudrati Kheti Abhiyan from Rohtak. A very, very deep, illustrious uh, innings and very strong, important role they have been playing in their regions. So we will learn about their journey. We'll learn about how they are creating a learning environment in their ecosystem or in the region, and how they have what kind of challenges they have met, or and they have answered or met those challenges. Very interesting stories are lined up. Very interesting interaction is lined up. Uh, keep your notepads handy. Keep your questions ready. There will be a lot of anecdotes and ideas will be here. And so the format will be, we will have around 15 minutes per presenter, and we'll have a 5-minute interaction after each presentation. But the main question and answers will happen at the end of the 3 sessions. This is a 1.5 hour session. Let's start with Bharat Bhai. And let me introduce Bharat Mansata. He is a writer of many books. I've got a couple of his books with me. I've met him on various occasions at IMA. He's an environmental activist. He's involved in ecological regeneration since 1994, nearly, 30 years now. And as an active member of the One Wadi Forest Collective, it's an intentional community, like a forested, one of the oldest intentional communities in the region of Maharashtra. He has authored several books on farming and sustainability, and he's also a core team member of Bharat Bij Swaraj Manch for seed conservation, and probably I know him also as an authority on the local native trees, plants in the region of Sahyadri and Western Ghats. So Bharat Bhai, over to you. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Manas. Namaskar and good evening to everyone present here. Before I start my talk, I'd like to request Kalashri to post 2 articles on chat, which people can read at their leisure. These are articles by me. One is on cultivating food forests, largely around the work and contribution of Bhaskar Save, who has been my mentor and guru in this subject. Another is an article on wild, uncultivated forest foods growing in a natural forest, not a cultivated food forest. And both these articles are of some significance. There is one more document which I have posted. And in the middle of that document is a list of topics covered in a course which we would have related to natural farming, agroecology, permaculture, a broad, full-length course. So, jumping more into the meat of the subject of farming, rather than going on a personal story or journey to save time, I would like to do a historical overview of food and farming. So the National Commission of Farmers of India, which was chaired by Swaminathan, mentioned that the history of agriculture in India, which is one of the oldest in the world, is barely 10,000 years old. Some may put it at 12,000, some may put it a little more, but it isn't, it's in the range of 10 to 15,000-year-old history of farming in India. But the history of human species on Earth goes back to 6, 7, 8 million years. The estimates vary. So before we got into farming, we were like all the other creatures living on this planet who got our food directly from nature without having to grow it ourselves, without having to farm it ourselves. So there are an estimated 80,000 plant species which are said to be humanly edible. This is according to the Gaia Atlas of Planet Management edited by Norman Myers. I myself attended a vibrant tribal food festival in 2014 in the Niyamgiri foothills of Odisha, where there were more than 900 samples on display. Of course, there's an overlap between the samples because it included both uncultivated forest species or species collected from the wilderness which were not grown, as well as cultivated farm species. Plus, there was an overlap between plant material and cooked recipes of species, but still 900 species on display in one Adivasi tribal food festival. Now, if we go back to the history of farming in India, if it's 10,000 years old, 9,940 years of that was organic farming before the Green Revolution took off. We can say that the mark of year for the Green Revolution taking off in India is 1966. This was the year when Swaminathan, he was secretary, I think already agriculture secretary, so almost all the prime ministers of India for over 4 decades in the agriculture ministry. He was instrumental in kicking off, he was the foster father, you can say, of the Green Revolution in India. Lal Bahadur Shastri had resisted the Green Revolution, but after his death, Swaminathan imported 18,000 varieties of dwarf hybrid wheat into India because our native varieties of grains, rice, wheat, millets, etc., were tall varieties. And when people used chemical fertilizer with that, they would bend over and fall, they would lodge. And of course, there was a whole thrust to promote chemical fertilizers post the Second World War, when there was surplus nitrogen manufacturing capacity. And they started off with giving us these fertilizers free and then giving us grants for it. And within our own planning commission, we had a debate on this whole approach, in the 60s. But post-independence, the first agriculture minister of India, Dr. K. Munshi, was a Gandhian. He had full faith in organic farming, and he proposed just 2 key principles: healing the fertility cycle of nature, the nutrient cycle, the fertility cycle of nature, and healing the hydrological or water cycle of nature. And he said that if we attended to these 2 fundamental tasks, our farmers with such a long history, one of the oldest of farming knowledge in the world, could very well look after themselves. And he was right. In those 15 years before the Green Revolution, after the British left, there was a good rise in agricultural production as well as productivity per unit area. In fact, higher than the Green Revolution years, according to the own government records. So we had a very advanced agriculture till about a century or 2 ago. Maybe 67 years ago, before chemical agriculture spread. So Bharat, whom I've written a book called The Vision of Natural Farming, an outstanding person, he once told me about a visit he made a farmer in Gujarat, in a dry area, receiving barely 10 inches of rainfall, no irrigation facility, growing a mix of six crops together, sowing them at the beginning of the rains. And in that unirrigated
Looks Bharat Bhai has lost his connection. Yeah, he's back.
Sorry, I think my connection dropped. Yeah. So I was telling you about this traditional mixed cropping system where this farmer grew, tuar, cotton, two varieties of millets, and two varieties of legumes, pulse legumes, covering the entire field, drawing yield from it round the year without irrigation. And he was creating the perfect microclimate for the soil of that field to remain healthy with just one plowing at the start of the monsoon every year. And even now, there are rich polycropping systems alive in many tribal belts. For example, in the Niyamgiri foothills among the Kond Adivasis, they grow more than a dozen varieties of crops altogether, including several varieties of millets, oil seeds, vegetables, and legumes. So this was a very rich system of agriculture. But because the government wanted to promote urbanization and industrialization, and post-Green Revolution, though agriculture jumped back healthily on its feet in the first 15 years, most of the food grown was a large variety of plants grown by farmers for their self-needs, and there were small surpluses. Small surpluses are tough to market. If you want to market to distant urban areas and industrial zones to promote urbanization, you need bulk volume, and small varieties are no good. Plus, a lot of this was perishable. So the Indian government took a conscious decision to promote the Green Revolution, though it is a big myth that we could not have fed ourselves by our traditional, very rich system of sustainable agriculture. So, well, we know the history of the Green Revolution from 1966. The 18,000 tons of dwarf hybrid wheat seeds imported from halfway across the world by Swaminathan through Norman Borlaug. And the same year, we have a 60% jump in the import of chemical fertilizers, and the floodgates of this alien green revolution technology opens wide. You have the use of fertilizers, you have the use of distinct hybrid seeds and dwarfs, and you have problems with plants, and then you have to use pesticides to control your pests, and the pests develop resistance, and you've jumped onto a treadmill of rising use of chemicals, devastating the health of the soil and the entire farm ecosystem. So let's jump back a little bit to more recent years. In around mid-1970, a remarkable Japanese farmer who was formerly a plant pathologist, a scientist, Masanobu Fukuoka, wrote a wonderful book, which became a classic, called The One Straw Revolution, an introduction to natural farming. So this farmer, Masanobu Fukuoka, who passed away maybe a decade ago, he did something remarkable in farming, with even his field crops. Now, by and large, plowing the field is something which is almost taken for granted by farmers all over the world, that you plow the field, loosen the soil before you sow the seeds. And Fukuoka knew that, untilled, unplowed, undisturbed soils are much healthier and become very rich. And he tried to adopt a method of organic farming, dispensing with tillage even, without disturbing the soil. He grew an overlapping succession of rice and barley, and he had a ground cover of white clover, which was leguminous. And when just before harvesting the rice, he would throw his pelleted seeds of barley, and in the harvest they would get trampled, but they would recover. And so he was able to cover the field round the year with his crops, and he was able to dispense with tillage. Of course, his was a temperate climate with much better rainfall round the year. His book, The One-Straw Revolution, written in Japanese initially, was read by very few people. In fact, Fukuoka says, I have many, many times more admirers in India than I have in my own country. Anyway, when Fukuoka's One-Straw Revolution in Japanese got translated by Larry Cohn into English, it became a classic, and it was translated into 60 languages all around the world, including about 7 or 8 Indian languages. And many people, started thinking, that we have to go back to a more sensible way of farming. Already, we had seen 15, 20 years of the Green Revolution technology. And by the 80s, people were waking up to its damaging effects. Even people like Swaminathan would say in his article, oh, I warned people so many years ago that, you can run into such and such problems. But he did very precious little to remedy the situation and, nudge us back to a more sensible organic pathway. So the organic thing was rich in any way, and it was moving forward with innovations, including no-till, which would help regenerate the health of the soil. But in Indian conditions, because we have rainfall concentrated in 4 months of the monsoon, and we have unirrigated fields, large amount of areas unirrigated. So in the dry, hot summer, the fields get baked hard, and it's almost mandatory to plow the field, to loosen the soil before sowing the seeds of your crops before the start of the monsoon, which is when they grow their main crop, or rather their only crop if it's unirrigated.
Bharat bhai, sorry.
I'm running out of time. Should I wrap up in 5
I would
minutes?
love to know more about your Vanwadi's learning initiatives and how you are.
Yes. So, if you love to hear more, just tell me how much time I have, and I'll try and cover both.
We have 5-7 minutes. Yeah.
5-7 minutes. Okay, I'll rush through it. So let me answer your question first. Around 1989, I attended a national gathering on natural living and natural farming. Before that, I had brought out a publication called Ecological Vision, with a major focus on ecological agriculture. This was because I had already read One-Straw Revolution. It was a landmark in my life. And after reading that, I attended the first permaculture course conducted by Bill Mollison in Hyderabad in 1987. And, I was sort of pulled into being one of the co-editors of the Permaculture India newsletter. And I was looking around for remarkable farmers all around the world. And when I met Bhaskar Save, and was mightily impressed by him as a remarkably successful organic farmer. Anyway, so after my book, Ecological Public Visions, was out, this gathering happened in 1989 in Bordi, in northernmost coastal Maharashtra. And just about 8 kilometers north of there was Bhaskar Save's farm, and there were 2 busloads of farmers 4 busloads of participants who went to visit the farm. And 4 of us during the visit decided that we'd start looking for lands together to do, organic farming of fruit and vegetables. And that was when the journey of Vanvadi started. Over 4 years, we looked at more than 40 pieces of land, almost bought 2 of them. And finally, in 1994, we visited the land in Vanvadi. It was at the start of monsoon. The land had been clear-felled just the previous year. Half the land had been clear-felled just the previous year, and another half the year before that. But one could see that the soil had vigor. It was regenerating very nicely. There was a density of plant growth. It was very short because it had been clear-felled, but one could see that there was vigor in the soil. And we thought if we passed the word around and bought more land, we could protect a much larger area. So we passed the word around, making some very basic rules, like no use of chemicals, at least 50% tree cover, conservative use of water, ecological audit as the guiding principle, fair dealings with local people, local needs to have consideration over monetary gain. So, and within 2 months, a group of 4 became more than 2 dozen. And we ended up buying 65 acres of land in 1994. And over the last 30 years, it's regenerated into a magnificent forest, I would say, with over 90,000 well-grown, full-grown trees, and quite a lot of plant diversity. So we did a botanical survey of our land with the help of knowledgeable local farmers and Adivasis. And this was quite a few years ago, almost 2 decades ago. And we identified more than 120 plant species, which the local people recognize as being traditionally useful, included in this 120 species of 52 varieties of plants, which provided some edible yield at some time of the year. So there were 52 uncultivated forest food species. There were more than 30 medicinal plant species. There were a large number of timber species, including top-grade timbers. And then there were plants which yielded edible gums, oils, leaf for making plates, botanical pesticides, food, fodder, fiber, everything needed for a healthy life, which we had even before we jumped into industrial agriculture. Anyway, so essentially, more than anything else, we helped protect the land to see that it wasn't clear-felled again. It was a large area, 65 acres, and without any boundary, with almost a 3.9-kilometer boundary, but no protection. So we had cattle coming in and people coming in, and we had damage. But in spite of that, it regenerated wonderfully. We then enclosed an area of 3 acres where we did our farming and plantings. We made our house. We dug our open well. We did a fair amount of rainwater harvesting, and it's become an extremely water-rich area with an abundance of water and the groundwater level pretty high. Our farming could be much better. So I would say for people who want to learn farming, I mean, we discuss and teach in Vanvadi, but if you want to see living examples of remarkably successful work, it would be much better to visit a farm like Bhaskar Save's Kalpvruksh farm, which is in southernmost coastal Gujarat. They conduct courses round the year, maybe 3, 4, 5 courses in a year, 5-day courses in various languages, including Hindi, English, and once in 2 years it's in English, where I translate. And you get to learn remarkably well from seasoned farming family of how to do successful farming without chemicals. So, one of the things Bhaskar Save says, jumping back to the subject of farming, is that the microclimate of the soil is the most critical factor in productive, healthy, sustainable, organic, ecological farming. And that is ensured with a thick density of ground cover of plants. And, he developed a system of growing a food forest by interplanting short life cycle, medium life cycle, and long life cycle crops, So, so if we consider, say, a mango to be a, long life cycle crop, which would live for more than 80, 100 years or even longer, and a custard apple has a medium lifespan, and papayas also has medium lifespan, and in short lifespan, vegetables. So you plant, mangoes at 40 feet distance, in between a custard apple at 20 feet, and in between that mango and the custard apple at 10 feet, you plant a papaya. On the other side as well, between the custard apple and the next mango, you plant a papaya as well. And all the space in between, you cover with the short life cycle crops, a huge variety of vegetables. The easiest low labor management things are gourds like, pumpkins, which will spread and cover the ground. So creating the perfect microclimate for the regeneration of the soil. And the regeneration of the soil, the organic life of the soil, is the critical task of organic sustainable farming, moving towards a do-nothing, pure natural farming, which is do-nothing farming, which Bhaskar Save has demonstrated on his field, where all he does is now harvest and occasional irrigation for the varieties of trees that need irrigation, which is like coconut and chiku. But if you do a combination of things like mango, custard apple, and stuff, which is, you look after it for 2-3 years, which Bhaskar Save says is the organic phase. He says a tree sapling is like a baby. You look after it for the first 2-3 years, then it looks after itself. If it needs, as any need, it'll come to its mother and say, okay, I want this, I want that. It'll look after itself, and then it'll look after the farmer. Just like a child, when it's grown up and the parents have aged, they look after the parents. So he says that is when you reach the natural farming phase. But the first 3 years is an organic farming phase, where it is not a do-nothing way of farming. You have to look at the plants. You have to see that if it is overgrown by some wild plant, you have to free it so that it gets abundant sunlight. He says the weeds growing around do not compete for mineral nutrients of the soil, but they do compete for sunlight. So you have to make sure that they do not overgrow your plants. And by this stratagem, he's successfully able to grow food forests, orchards, and you can integrate a wider variety of foods in it.
I need to step in, Bharat Bhai.
Yes, okay. So I should wind up now. And people want to look at the topics, curriculum topics.
So we'll come back to learning about the initiatives at Vanwadi in the last section of this this talk, where we can ask questions. I hope, and I will be able to learn specifics about your learning initiatives and your journey into educating. So I'm sorry, this time has been much shorter than.
If you like, I'll just say half a minute. Since the last 6 years, we've been conducting a lot of workshops and camps, farming and stuff like that, and forestry, rainwater harvesting, building reserves, etc., etc. And we have our workshop every year starting on Shira, 2017, which is again a place where a lot of people looking for an alternative lifestyle, way of living, come and visit somebody, they interact with one another, they get inspiration, they go back and form their own small groups and start in this pathway. That's all. And there are different questions.
Great. Thank you. This is a lovely place. I would urge everybody to visit. And thank you, Bharat Bhai. Just stay with us and we'll come back with questions to you towards the end. Now let me go to Padma Garu and Narsanna Garu from Aranya Agriculture Alternatives. A little brief introduction to Narsanna Garu. He is a permaculture practitioner, designer, teacher, and a campaigner. He is a flag bearer of the natural, sustainable, regenerative farming through permaculture all over the world. He has trained, and I know this, he has trained over 5,200 students, and as I speak, or possibly more, in India and 35 other countries through a 13-day permaculture designer course. Every month at Aranya, there is a course, a PDC, or another course for the farmer, or another course for the trainers. Something or the other is going on. And when the course is not on, he's teaching the farmers in the field. And I am one of them. I've been to his course, two courses. And he's an expert in watershed and water management and consultant to the government of Telangana and AP. And along with him, equal and more is Padma Koppula, Padma Garu. She specializes in training rural women in Telangana and Andhra, focusing on resource management, skill development, and democratic empowerment. Padma has directly engaged 200,000, 2 lakh farmers in canal irrigation management and supported seed banks, women groups, and federations. She is a walking, talking university. I know Padma also trains landless communities, and some people are need to mute their Gopalakrishna.
I think, yeah, I think
Yeah, I've
Bharat's
just
mic was
muted
on.
them. Yeah, I've muted them. Sorry. Padma also trains landless communities in permaculture and advocates for land rights. Additionally, she conceptualized training programs for government officials on participatory irrigation management, improving food security, livelihood, and ecosystem services. This is a small part of their very long list of achievements, but to know more, you have to visit Aranya and spend some time with them. But now we have 20 minutes with them. Let me hand over the stage to Narsanna and Padma.
I think that before we start, like not onning the video, because it's once we on the video, it is getting disconnected. Internet connection is not stable. Is it okay?
Okay. Yeah, I think it's okay then. Let me also switch off my video.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. I don't want to go more for formalities, so just directly get into the topic. Okay, I think this is a great opportunity for us to introduce ourselves. And as a Aranya Agriculture Alternatives and NGO, which is started in 1999. So, but before that, my journey started in permaculture, which I was working on NGO, where I met my guru, Dr. Venkat. I was a permaculturist, 87, but I was not fully equipped with all permaculture knowledge in 87. I think Bharatji, one of the participants during that time. And again, I did my course in 1990. I think the permaculture designers course is a very, I think there's entire what are the idea about agriculture. I learned a lot of techniques, and particularly I'm little not very kind of what exactly the agriculture talks about. I think this is where exactly my perspective got changed. So then in that, whatever the idea I had about agriculture, I wanted to do myself. But at the same time, I am from a background of agriculture background. I am from Adilabad, is a tribal dominated, I think, the district. I am from tribal area. I think this agriculture, what I learned, what is the permaculture I learned, I think is slowly, I think I could correlate what I was doing, what is my community, how permaculture will be applicable in. I think that is my lifestyle got changed. I think in journey, I think met my God. I think even as my mentor as well as my guru as well. I think I have a lot of support from him, and I started doing more than the teaching side. I was most of the time. I think I should not have a piece of land, but I already have a land at my native place. I think, but I shifted to Zairabad, where I'm working started my journey with permaculture, getting lands for the poor people, and against the forest, the species which introduced by forest department, the eucalyptus, And these are the certain things. And I started my permaculture journey with activism. I think slowly I got meanwhile a piece of land. There, I wanted to myself do some farming, not just talking. Also, can I do something differently? What the regular agriculture systems are there. So that is where just I turned as a not full time, but a piece of land. But always I think it's a farm is not my cup of tea actually. My journey, totally my perspective is working. My farmers fields are my battlefield. I think not working on my farm. That's why I neglected my farm. I took this piece of land where I developed, the community developed actually. I didn't develop, but most of the principles and the ethics applied on this permaculture farm since almost till 1998, we bought this land. But since that, I didn't put much efforts to grow, but just let us see how does it evolve. The evolution is one of the best method to intervene every step. I think this is where just I looked at this farm as a great evolution happened. I think it's not just I wanted to see this farm as a uncultivated ecology rather than cultivated. I think that's where just I started myself to understand how does it nature exhibits her own functions in this kind of ecosystem. I think this area is a Jairabad, is a Telangana district state. The average rainfall in this area is just 650 rainfall. But this is my area, but I'm not working on the farm. Most of the time I'm working on the farmers field. It's one of the challenging, and they're all landless poor. And most of the farmers doesn't have land. I think totally my idea was how to access them to the land. So accessing the land is one of the issue challenges. That is how I got into the more getting land for the landless. I think that is my journey started a little more kind of aggressive step to go into that kind of trying to get lands for the landless poor. I think this way exactly the permaculture, the radical approach. I think this approaches at how it is help the community, but that's where I realized the people, those who don't have land, and what are the purpose of having the government land is available in those villages. Just I started getting land for them. The wage laborers were, I think they are landless, most of the largely wage laborers, and just is a wage is also in that area. I think totally 650 rainfall is too low, definitely. I think that the Deccan Plateau is a totally lateritic and more or less rainfall area. I think there's totally red agriculture. 80% of the people depend on the red agriculture. How we can make them that agriculture as a sustainable subsistence farming. That's a very challenging, but we are enjoying also. I think that's where just we started, and I looking at what are the knowledge I got, what to be sown, how to be continue this kind of agriculture on my own land. But as the bone is always a little kind of my conviction to use that own land. Actually, I wanted to be a custodian, not an owner of that land. That's why most of the principles, what are the ethics we applied on this farm is just is a totally involved community involvement, and just we followed them what they are doing. Look at the permaculture concepts. I think how we can understand in their context. I think the context is very important. I think that's why we started this farm, but slowly it is lot of lush growth and a lot of plants are started, number of species that came up, and just we started looking at the farmers coming and saying a lot of community level nursery. We started raising a lot of community seed banks we established, and a lot of big, I think almost a community compost. I think these are always a community aspect we are doing, and a scale is also a little bigger, but started small. But with that experience, we expanded, I think almost all some around this area, villages and different districts. I think this farm is almost a lot of abundance, and what is the produce to be done? We thought of, I think, not want to make it more profit from this. I think let us give whatever I do it here on the farm, let us distribute and share with the community. That's where the entire concept I got changed. And what I do grow, I want to share. I think this is when abundance, which means I think should not become a surplus. I think the community is the biggest asset for us. I think what are the knowledge we are getting from that has to be Aranya permaculture farm has got evolved. I think today is one of the farm. I think in the first time I have seen the kind of things what I expected 20 years ago. This is a 25-year-old farm, but in the beginning, I think I a lot of water harvesting is done, and the elevated area is a 1,500 feet from the above the sea level. Yeah, I think that kind of terrain it is. I think we dug the open well. We got some water, and also when I planted a lot of plants, which is most of the local species, and the more not non-grafted, and slowly I started some grafted also. But I think looking at the farmers' needs, we introduced based on their needs, we started this farm and started developing. Slowly today, I think it is, as I already, most of my work and everything, I think Manas has in the introduction, he said everything. I think what should I share with you? But this is a farm today, as I said, this is the first time in the world nowhere it's happening. Every month there is a PDC and teachers and lot of teacher training courses, advanced courses and architecture and farmers and school children, what everything is happening. I think then this is where exactly I thought, I think most of the people are, why this kind of demand raised, not just because of the permaculture. I think one day I realized because to see farm. I think farm is the kind of changing, the transformation took in almost 20 years. I think everything in surplus. I think we are creating a lot of produce and a lot of information, a lot of, I think the way of things are happening totally different. I think we started some exotic even. I think they are also started growing here. This is just how much the microclimate has been in this farm. I think these are the biggest learning, and many every day, every time, every month, lot of visitors started coming from the farming community and all, even NGOs and number of children, I think keep coming. And this is where exactly the farm transformation took place. Slowly we got into the more applied. In 2013, I started permaculture course actually in the PDC. I think at that time, what to be in the syllabus and curriculum, I'm not so confused. I think just I started what is important for the Indian context in permaculture way. That's what is applied permaculture I started. What farmers needed really. Someone wanted to go and back to the farm and where to start, how to start. I think just very non-negotiable and negotiable things. And non-negotiable, I made it very compulsory to be that. This I think every farm must have their own water harvesting and just windbreaks. If it's based on the farms or a live fence or the windbreak based on the farm size, and then the composting and the soil reclamation of what are the ways and how you can reclaim your soils. I think these are certain things that we made it very having your own local species and definitely community involvement. These are negotiable on this farm. I think that is where we started. I think today it is one of the biggest asset for this entire region. I think a lot of international, national community, national people also started coming to not only for courses to see and interact. And we conducted National Permaculture Convergence and thrice in the farm and once in Hyderabad. And we hosted the International Permaculture Convergence in Hyderabad, and then one of the farm where we help farmers, small and marginal farmers, and particularly with the women farmers, a lot of work, and lot of consultancies. The farmers will come and the consultancy people will come and learn what is design, what is the plants to go, what species to be appropriate for this region. I think that kind of learning is happening in those farm. I think most of the things I think is not in sharing. I think you have any questions, we'll ready to attend. So before that, I think just Padma wanted to share something about our community work and other things related to the Aranya permaculture, agriculture alternatives.
Okay. Namaste. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Especially when working with the communities, like whatever we develop, whatever we designed a permaculture farm here. So always why we need to design the farm, the design itself. So how are you going to meet our needs? So this is something which we need to think of it. Like when I'm working with the farmers, 100 acres farmers, 2 acres farmer, 1 acre farmer. So all the farmers now, I think recent days, so they like most of the things they started working, buying the things, growing the commercial crops, buying the food from the outside. So like if you don't meet your needs of food from the farm, why we are doing the agriculture? That is the biggest question which I have in my mind. So the permaculture has given answer. This is the live example of Aranya permaculture farm was designed in a such a way that all 365 days, all kinds of fruits, vegetables, crops will be grown. So out of 11.5 acres, like 9.5 acres is the only rainfed. Only 2 acres is the irrigated, that is also since 2014. This place, just we got 19 months back electricity connection. So 2014 until 2014, it's completely 100% dry land. This is where the example that what we experience, how it has been evolved, the same stories, the same models experience with the farming lands. Like in the same village, there is 150 acres of the land, there is no water, but even though they could able to design their own farm, how they can get their food from that farm. So that's where the permaculture design help in regenerative way to get their food from their farm, income from their farm, in their farm. So this is where I feel like always I feel like first thing which we need to know is how to grow the food. That is the first and primary education which we need to teach to the children. Unless until if you don't have that, maybe might have masters and double masters and other things. If you don't know this, how are you going to live it? Why our generations of the children are getting mainstream system education, are getting competition, and then frustration, and all kinds of problems which you are facing because of that. Especially youth and educated children, there is so much of stress. This is the place which I can share. I feel like this place, I can say now, I don't want anything. I think all the youth and children should know how they can grow their own food, because it's a piece of land which can provide food for the generations and generations together. Because we forget that practice, we are earning money to buy the food. So at least this is this is the education we are giving to the many people, and people are designing their own lives how they want to be. So with the minimalistic lifestyle, with the nature is a big educator. Like if you start living in the nature, it gives so much to us. Like what we have not learned from the book, the nature will taught to us. That's where, like here, this is what we are sharing with the permaculture designers course. There is a topics, there is a subjects, but how it has been applied in our day-to-day life. Each farm, like when you are designing a farm, like it should meet your needs. How each farm is different, each soil is different, each agroclimatical condition is different, but how that permaculture principles can be applied. And also there is a climate change solutions are there. So how there is so much of cotton monocropping systems are being used. There is a lack of carbon in the soils. How it is going to be a restore of the carbon through different practices, like making a biochar, putting back to the soils, and then charging it, integration of animals, and how we can attract the birds, which species we can plant. And also, like when you're designing, how are you going to restore and revive of your indigenous seedlings, trees, seeds, all other things. Like especially in the trees, if you can, when you're designing, you can, especially I can share my experience in the community lands in the Aranya farm. It's like a 30 to 40% of the seedlings was planted. It's a long duration, and then diversity of the taste, diversity, and the resilient. And at the same time, 60% grafted. You will get the short duration, long duration, and how are you going to meet needs of your farm also? How are you going to generate in situ practices? What is the practices which we can build? We don't need to dependent on the external resources. Why should we bring from the outside? How are you going to integrate? And also, like there are so many, when you are working with the communities, especially there are so many tanks are available. So the tank silt is deposited for years and years together. How that tank silt can be applied to build the soil fertility and the soil health. So this is where we are working with the large scale community, and also the same tank silt, it is the tank, it will be taken out, desilted and applied to the farmlands so that the fertilizers and the others can be reduced, weeding, there are so many issues, all these can be reduced. At the same time, so much of water can be stored wherever we have excavated the soil. So it means groundwater, how it can be recharged. So farmers, how the irrigation efficiency can be improved, moisture holding, organic carbon, all these things. There is a one active how.
So, yeah, now coming back. Yeah.
Recording in progress.
Yes. Yes. It's like the training. Yeah, Manas, do you have time? Time is up.
Just a couple of more minutes.
Okay. And another thing, like whatever the training module was designed, and then the curriculum was developed according to Indian conditions, and also how we can use the curriculum depends on the local methods and local techniques. And also there is so much of adult education methodology was used, is a pedagogy approach, because when we are working with the communities also, especially for the women, there is a special trainings and the special curriculum, there is a different methodology like that. So for the permaculture also, we developed the curriculum and using the different topics. There is a training module, there is a topics are there, and also how we can be a reflective mode, like when you are teaching, so what we are teaching, how the people are receiving and practicing is also very important. And then material development, how it can be applied to the local conditions. And second thing is how the experiential learning. So there are many things which can be a theory, but once you applied it, once you practiced it, how it will be giving the results. The experiencing is something so that they are going to get here. And then like water is so much, like water restoration. In that also, how we are bringing the practical experiences. And also it's also the entire process is the learner centric pedagogy approach. Like there is like working with so many communities and working with the permaculture. So in the entire thing, the capacity building of different categories of different stakeholders, different modules, water module, biochar module, permaculture module, everything was developed in-house with the expertise, with the experienced people, with the holistic system thinking process. This is what in Aranya Permaculture Academy, that's why like entire India, entire I think world over, people are coming here and spending their valuable time, 13 days in Aranya Permaculture Academy, learning their permaculture experience. And then after going back, there are so many people. So far, around 5,000 people there, they spend their 13 days time in Aranya Permaculture Academy. It is like giving feedback was given it is like a life-changing experience for them. It's all more on hands-on experiential learning. At the same time, if you are living in the nature, how you are feeling, because we are disconnected from the nature. Again, once you come back to the nature, how it is going to be useful to you. That is like unless until if you don't spend your time in nature, you don't get it. That's where the connecting back to the nature is the biggest asset and biggest learning from Aranya Permaculture Academy.
Thanks, Padma. You have really shared so much in a short time. Thanks, Narsanna. And this is just a glimpse of what you can experience at Aranya. Every day there are groups of people coming, and especially local farmers, local community members, landless people. there's so much how the permaculture has input to community learning space. This can be witnessed at Aranya. And with that, let me move to speaking to a very senior member of our community here in Haryana, Dr. Rajinder Chaudhary, who was a professor of economics at MD University Rohtak. I met him first around 5 years back at a farmers meetup. All the farmers, local farmers were there, and he organized that, and it's been going on. The Kudrati Kheti Abhiyan, it's called, which is centered in Rohtak, but a whole lot of people around Haryana are connected. It is an unregistered voluntary group run on voluntary contribution of farmers. It's run by the farmers. Kudrati Kheti Abhiyan has been promoting self-reliant organic farming in Haryana since 2009, with focus on farmers who are dependent on farming for their livelihood. KKA, as it's known, has shown that done properly, yield comparable to chemical farming is possible without the use of chemical fertilizers. And that's true, a lot of field trials I know they have been run, and here the learning initiative is run by the farmers for the farmers under the guidance or the light of Dr. Chaudhary. And now we would love to hear from you, Dr. Chaudhary, about the program and how the learning initiative, how the Farmversity aspect of KKA has taken shape.
Thank you, Manas. There can be two kinds of course curriculums. One is for those who do not know farming as such. My experience of Kudrati Kheti Abhiyan experiences, we have been working with farmers who have been doing chemical farming. So we only have to tell them about the organic methods and all that. For urban people who do not know farming, a different kind of curriculum would have to be designed. Now, within organic farming also, there can be there are various models of non-chemical farming. There is a noise coming, Bharat. Manasji, there is a noise from somewhere. Okay. So there are various methods, various models of non-chemical farming. Our model is of self-reliant organic farming or natural farming. No external inputs. That is what we have been trying to do. Third dimension of designing a curriculum would depend upon whom are you addressing. Are you addressing people who have earned their money livelihood elsewhere and are doing farming for health or environmental benefits or as an add-on to their other livelihood options? Or are you addressing farmers who are surviving on agriculture? Our experience is for smallholder organic farmers who are surviving on agriculture. And here again, what would matter is whether you are able to provide any marketing help to them or not. We were not in a position to provide any marketing help to them. So from the day one, we focused on yield comparability. If a farmer who is surviving on agriculture and has no marketing support, no other financial support, then for a person to shift from chemical farming to organic farming, it is imperative that the yield is comparable so that even if the person has to sell in the regular market, he or she does not make any losses. So this is the framework in which we conduct our farming, our training. As against what two other speakers have said, we have just a one-day training, no residential training, and it is just 3 to 5 hours. Because farmers, our trainees generally know the farming per se. We have to only tell them about the organic methods. Now, and we try to mix both principles and methods because principles have to be illustrated by methods, examples, and methods because all methods have to be adopted to local conditions. So knowledge of principles is also important. Now, ideally, the best training is done by practicing farmers. But we have noticed that practicing farmers are very good in question answer session or in problem solving sessions, but they are not in very systematic in planning the whole gamut of things. So a mix of a so-called academic training, which they use, which the role that I serve, and a practicing farmer who is able to answer any questions or elaborate on his methods. That is how we do it. And lastly, about the methodology, it's best done on farm, but often on-farm location has its own logistical issues. We have only one-day training program, people coming from all over Haryana. So sometimes the on-farm location may not be very convenient. So our experience has been basically with off-farm training, more of a classroom training, where some practicing farmers are there to share their experience, and there is a basic discussion of principles and methods. Obviously, the first question that we have to ask is why organic farm? There are obviously reasons why we have to shift to organic farming. But one reason that I was not aware of when I shifted to organic, when I started working with farmers, was people are aware of chemical residue remaining in the food. The residue of chemicals, harmful chemicals used in the farm, remaining in the food that we eat. That is something people know, most of the people know. But what most people do not know is, even if there is no residue, the nutritional composition of food is not as good as under organic conditions, or as it used to be under when our grandparents or earlier generations were there. So this is something which has to be highlighted, which we do highlight when we discuss why shift from chemical farming. And this, we do it with the help of data available on National Institute of Hyderabad, ICMR-backed institution. It has data from 1937, the nutrition composition of food that we have, and up to 2017. So that's one additional point which we emphasize, that the food nutritional composition of food is not what the food was meant to be. And that is why you are repeatedly relying on, more and more relying on food supplements and food fortification, etc. Now, another challenge that we face in training is that for most people, organic is equivalent of non-chemical usage. They stop chemicals, but rest of their practices, agronomical practices, remain as they were under chemical farming. This is a biggest challenge that we face in training. Farmers feel that once they've stopped the chemical, the food is organic. Definitely the food is organic if the chemicals have been stopped, and it may have all the goodness of organic food. But to get comparable yield, that does not suffice. For comparable yields, many other agronomical changes have to be there. Composting has to improve, irrigation methods have to change, monocropping has to go. We have a list of about 30 tasks that farmers have to take care of. So this is one big thing. Now, initially, we mentioned all these things even in our initial trainings. Our initial material also mentioned all these things. But even we were not emphasizing all these points significantly. We were treating it as mentioning it, doing a training on it, but we ourselves were not emphasizing the points equally well. So farmers were questioning the desirability as well as feasibility of some of these agronomical changes. But in due course, when we did not get the results, we arranged farm visits into Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh, and we learned from there. And then farmers started changing their practices. And once they started changing their practices, and so a broader view of organic farming was taken, not just stoppage of chemicals, but of other agronomical changes also, then they started getting good results. One limitation of our training has been, ours has been a one-shot training, a one-day training, that's all. We could not do any follow-up, and we could not visit the farms frequently. That's our limitations. Ideally, one-shot training does not suffice. Farm visits have to be there, on-farm training has to be there, and a follow-up has to be there. That unfortunately our resources did not permit, but we tried to compensate that with farm visits organized once or twice a year for interested farmers. So that is how we try to compensate for these our limitations. Coming to specific content of training, basic principle of organic farming is that microorganisms are essential to soil fertility and chemical farming kills them. Role of microorganisms is to make non-soluble elements available to plants, and if nutrients removed from soil are returned to it, then by and large, exceptions apart, soil fertility can be retained. This has been the underlying principle of our understanding, and if plants gets healthy, if soil is healthy and plants get balanced and complete nutrition, then generally speaking, they take care of pest and disease. But we do cover specific methods that can be adopted by farmers when faced with a pest or diseases. Essential principles that we have listed, we have prepared recently in 2021. We brought our first manual in 2009, but that was more of an academic learning. And in 2021, we brought out our third edition of the manual, which was worked by the practicing organic farmers of Haryana. Over 2 days, they sat through and went line by line over the whole manual and finalized it. That PDF of that is available, and printed copy of that is also available. In that, we have listed 5 basic principles. Fertile soil has to be alive soil. Crop residue needs to be recycled. Off-farm usage is second best option only. It has to be reused on the soil. Biodiversity is must. Seeds should be good, tested and treated, and trees and animals must be incorporated into it. So we cover these 5 principles and we elaborate these with methods. For example, what can be done to make the soil alive? What are the various methods? What are the formulations that can be used? Seed treatment, how it can be done? Seed testing, how it can be done? So as I mentioned earlier, we have over 30 methods that suggested methods that farmers have to take care of. Among the methods we cover composting methods, alternative fertility maintenance techniques, seed testing and treatment, seed amount. Seed amount is another issue which we have to focus. Plants make their own food with the help of sunlight. So adequate sunlight is important for plants to develop and grow. And for that, seed rate is an important. In generally under chemical farming, we use excessive amount of seed. So those aspects are also discussed. Crop mix and crop rotation, pest and fungus control, weed management, and we do spend some amount of certification and marketing. We have not been as I mentioned earlier, we have not been helping them with the marketing per se, but we do share the methods of marketing which different farmers are adopting and certification and things like that. We try to make this session a mix of principles and methods with actually practicing farmers sharing their own experience. So it is a mix of principles, methods, and experience sharing by farmers. It runs from 3 to 5 hours, depending upon the audience response and the number of farmers present. I think so. I have few more minutes. But we have also realized that given current economic structures, farming, whether chemical or alternative, cannot be the first choice of any young person with small land holding. That's a fact we must realize. For that to happen, economy has to be much more equitably organized. And for that, specific and separate social interventions are needed. These are essential, but that's another ballgame altogether. We have managed to convince hundreds and not thousands of farmers to make the shift, create local model farms, and in 2019 and 2021, we collected data. It was a telephonic interviews or field visits, no crop cutting experiments. and some 47% of our organic farmers were getting better than the state average yield, official state average yield in wheat. Wheat is the benchmark crop for Haryana, which is the most problematic crop for us. But for that also, we have been able to manage equivalent yields better than 47% farmers are getting better than the state official average yield. But sadly, we have failed to convince for farmers' organizations or agriculture establishments. I'm over. Thank you, Manas. And I'm sure, I hope I am within my time limit.
Absolutely, you are within your time limits. You have 4 minutes more to speak about if you have something to share. Else I can add a bit, and because I come under the same influence area of Rajinder ji in Gurgaon, and there are few farmers who come to Gurgaon regularly to sell their produce, and I can see that though it's been difficult, as he said, marketing for small farmers, there has been a great and positive impact in their methodology and how they have adopted these principles and gone to multi-cropping, have increased yield, and have created integrated systems based on the learnings received. And it's a great peer-to-peer model which Kudrati Kheti Abhiyan has created. Of course, with its due share of challenges, but where the challenges are not, it's moving and growing fast. I have a first-hand experience with Rajinder ji and also learning from Narsanna and Padma from a culture design course and a teacher's training course. And I could first-hand experience like each of these places, even Vanwadi also I haven't visited, but I have interacted with Bharat Bhai, that how a local system, it's not like a one format will fit all. These pedagogies have evolved over time locally to support the local needs, the local ecosystem, the local community. A lot of tribal, lot of village community has been directly in getting benefits from these three projects which we have talked of today. How these projects have helped them support and maintain their wisdom, which is rapidly getting lost all over. Like seeds are getting lost, the methods are getting lost, the water harvesting methods, the preservation methods, the processing methods, everything like so rapidly they're getting lost. But we have these learning projects, and that's where the Farmversity Rising is such a topical discussion today. That how instead of a formal university system, a formal one format system, we are able to create these local OSS or the nucleus systems where education or the learning for the local community can be created. Do I have any questions here? Let me look through quickly. I have something from Mukesh Gupta. Let me read. Mukesh bhai, are you here? What should be our approach while co-creating curriculum for farmers schools being conducted in the community? I would like to learn what should be our approach while co-creating curriculum for farmer schools being conducted in the community, particularly for landless, small and marginal farmers. I think this question is best answered by Narsanna and Padma, because they have direct experience with the landless and small marginal farmers in Zahirabad. Padma, are you there?
Yeah.
Yes,
Please
yes.
Yes. What
Yeah,
has been your experience?
I think the landless, as you know, everyone landless, not a part of this game. I think their issue is totally different. I think there's the
Mhm.
landless, I think the landholders and landless. These are two very important aspects of our entire community and in India. I think whereas the landless, we are creating awareness. What are the rights? If they are landless is there, what are the any government land is available or no government land is not available in it? What is the rural system, their hours and working and their benefits and the wage hike and what are the regular wages for the men and women? These kind of issues we will talk to them most of the time. I think we will prompt to see that kind of things in our community, and we will pay some extra. I think there's the difference between men and women. Still, it's continuing in this area. I think we sometimes we cannot go against the community decisions. I think this is as far as that is the curriculum is that is the kind of curriculum in the landless, the teaching and advocacy. And the small and marginal farmers, I think they're very limited resources they have. I think what are the land holding they have and how they want to make it not profitable, not even optimistic even is not possible. But having that land, that piece of land, how much they can produce from that land, and rest of the days, what are the resources, what are the opportunities, what is the employment? I think these are one of the biggest challenge in this area. We are looking, I think the kind of small and marginal farmers, most of the time they think it's the not viable agriculture. I think how you make it viable. I think that's one of the some of the models. I think we tried out. I think whatever the small holdings they have, I think most of the land they do put under agriculture, regular agriculture. So in those lands, we started creating some employment by water harvesting and some planting some trees on rainfed agriculture, some seed and storage of seeds and making their livelihoods out of that. I think these are some of the small income. I think that is make their lives are so comfortable, not so rich, but I think they are happy with that kind of initiatives as far as Aranya and our experience is concerned.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Like when, especially working with the women, when there's landless women are there, single women are there, especially landless women, small things like backyard poultry, backyard kitchen garden. So having a 1 or 2 goats along with the working with the people, and then giving more awareness, like how they can generate the small incomes and then how they can produce their own food within the small scale. So at least the small things, it gives so much of confidence among the women.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So I hope that answers. Bharat bhai, what about you in your Manwari community? Did you?
Yes, if I can have just 2 minutes to
Yes.
mention curriculum, the topics we try to cover in a full-length course. So, first is introduction to agroecology, natural farming, permaculture, and regenerative systems, which includes, traditional farming. Second is amazing the rich heritage of traditional, time-tested, sustainable practices. Introduction to flows, nodes, and patterns. There's a full day on water harvesting, water cycling, and water management. A full day on soil introduction, soil health, and building fertile soils. Then the session on permaculture and the farm as an ecosystem. Then understanding natural farming and organic farming, the subtle nuances and difference. An overview of different agroforestry systems. An interactive session on listing and selecting locally appropriate plants and crop species, also local wild species of foods, then regenerating traditional biodiversity and biocultural knowledge and practices, of which we have a rich wealth. Then Bhaskar Save's natural farming approach to create a food forest or orchard of trees and perennials. Then there's introduction to permaculture design, sectors and zones, maps and map making, animal systems, integrated pest management, seed saving and propagation techniques, and practical application of what you have learned to design an integrated, holistic, agroecological or permacultural design for your land. So that's a quick run through the topics we have.
Yeah, thank you, Bharat Bhai. I would, I have a question for Rajendra ji about, like, you did mention that all the entire curriculum is run by the farmers and also it's for the farmers. Any kind of challenge in gathering them and how any one key challenge or two challenges you want to share about and what is the way out? And especially I want to have your say on the next generation, the coming generation of these farmers. What do you say their interest level is in? How are we keeping that alive?
I clearly mentioned that organic or chemical farming per se is losing out on the other, and that issue has to dealt with overall economy level. Even our best organic farmers with 2 acres of land holding would any day would go for a government job if he gets a regular government job. So that's something which we have to realize. Now, in terms of mobilizing farmers for training, we have had different kinds of things. For a couple of months or maybe 2 years or so, we ran a monthly training. It was fixed. First Sunday of the month, it was fixed. So farmers, anyone who was interested would come on its own. There would be sometime 5, sometime 10, sometime 15, and maybe there were occasions when nobody turned up. That's one part of it. For new farmers, we do this. For old farmers who have been doing organic farming for a couple of years, then we hold 1 or 2 meetings, 2 meetings over a year, where numbers can be as low as 40, 50 and can go up to 150 or so, something like that. So that's how we have been doing it. I have noticed that after 2015, the interest has increased in organic farming, and now farmers on their own are also approaching us for training. That's what we have been doing. Did I answer your question?
Manas, you're on mute in case you're speaking.
Sorry, that really answers my question. Any interest from the schools coming
No.
up?
No.
We have a project in Jadol near Udaipur. It's called the Farmversity, and they are working with the tribal youth there, more about maintaining or preserving their tribal wisdom. The families are participating. They come as a fellow, and I could firsthand experience the challenges or the circumstances they are facing at this point. So there's a long way to go, and the respite is not in the formal system. At least the 15 fellows were there, and they showed up every day. They've created a 2-month program for the youngsters, young tribal youth. Yes, they are facing challenges with the livelihood and how to implement the learnings from the academy into their everyday practices. But they did feel better equipped from before. That is one of the projects. I saw Malvika here. It seems she's gone. We could have invited her for a few minutes, but she's not here.
Manas, if you allow, I have one question. I'm Rahul from Mumbai. If you allow
Yes,
me.
Rahul. Yes, please, Rahul, go ahead.
Sir, as I'm planning to start something with my land, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. As urban people, I would like to ask one question to all our mentors. If we are going to a land, so farming is a technical point of view, and I assume if you practice well, maybe I will achieve something or not. But to start with, I would like to understand the community part of view, the social point of view, how to get involved in community and how to make community involved in you. That is my basic question, because if I'm going there, I will be living there, and community involvement, I think, creates a major impact on my stay and my sustenance on that land. So if anyone can guide light on that, means how
So-
community. I hope I delivered my question correctly.
Yeah, your question is delivered correctly, though it's a bit, it's rather out of the context. But let me just take the permission. We are right now sharp at 8:30.
Okay.
So we can officially close this meeting, but unofficially we can continue and have the answer. And for that, let me invite Bharat Bhai and Narsanna to answer Rahul if they feel.
So
sharing
I have a
something.
brief suggestion. I think the question relates to mobilizing community involvement. So, wherever you are, if you can walk around, talk around, meet some old senior farmers who have done, farming for the chemical era, and talk with them, discuss them, invite half a dozen of them or a dozen of them to your land to share their experiences, to share their knowledge about what are the things which grow well in that area, which grew well in that area in the past without chemicals, and have an informal seed exchange system. These are kinds of things which will benefit everyone concerned, and it will be the seed of a slowly evolving community involvement on this subject, and then we can have more and more sessions and discussions later on.
Yeah, some sort of active organic
visit
engagement
people's
with the
farms,
community. Yeah, will be helpful.
Yes.
So,
Thank you, Bharat sir.
Yeah.
uh,
Okay. Done?
yeah, you want to add something to this, Narsanna?
Yeah. My approach is I'll share my experience. I think the Rahul good, but I think the those days have gone. Please, frankly speaking, wherever you go, just don't put in the embarrassing situation talking about chemical, non-chemical. I think the moment you start talk that kind of talk, they don't agree and they don't talk to you at all. I think this is a very controversial topic. I think other than that, you can address something other than the chemical, non-chemical. You have to talk about their children education, some water, and some seeds, and some crops, and just very general social studies. The moment if you go, I think it's a long term. It's not just as one day, it won't connect. I think whether you wanted to involve them or you want to go to them and mingle with them, there's always vice versa. I think your experience, you are going from an outsider. I think you directly putting them into the chemical, non-chemical thing. I think that's what my experience is there. I never did it. I will suggest you. I think it's both ways it has to work. I think don't put into that kind of situation the people, whether you are doing non-chemical. Just, I think you just be as a person with them, community, understand, respect them, and just you chit-chat and talk rather than only chemical. There are a number of issues are there. I think that is where just you can mingle with them. That's what my experience. Yeah, just you can think. Definitely you can. I think they'll trust you. Trust, where does it come from? Not a non-controversial topic. Is a chemical, non-chemical is a controversial. I think that's my experience. I got it. Yeah. Thank you.
That came from a lot of experience, Narsanna and Bharat Bhai. So I got Yogi here, who's looking for support in designing the farm. We've got a lot of notes getting exchanged here in the chat. This chat is getting recorded, and this program is recorded. It will be available very soon on the appropriate channel, I think on the YouTube. With that, let me really thank everybody for joining in, especially Bharat Bhai, Padma, Garu, Narsanna, Garu, Rajinder ji, for becoming part of our very first event called the Farmversity Rising. There are 4 more in the series every Tuesday, 7 to 8:30. We're talking about research, we're talking about marketing, we're talking about design, whole lot of subjects we are going to cover and have a very interactive session. We have a lot of experts lined up who are enthusiastically participating in these sessions. So looking forward to, and these are open sessions. There's no registration required. There's no form filling. They're free to attend.
No,
All this
there will be from the second session. I'm designing a form. There is a form. Yeah.
Okay. I stand corrected. I thought it's all copyright left.
No.
in my-
I am designing a form. We are to
Yeah,
track.
but that will
who is
help
com-
us capture feedback and questions.
Yeah,
more,
So we
yeah,
are
that's-
designing a form. So the second
Sure.
session onward, expect a form.
Expected form, but I just keep it voluntary, not compulsory. Okay, people, thanks for joining in this, Manas, and lovely having you here. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kala. Thank you, Atul.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Bharat Bhai, and I think the Rajinder ji, Manas, yeah, Kalashri and Atul. So
thank
many people. I think I know so many people. Of the half dozen people, I can see their names on the screen. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, so many friends. Yes,
Yes, everyone.
you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.